Hello. Today we'll look into an example of frequent item set mining. Frequent item set mining means we want to find the patterns where we have sufficient number of examples in the transactions where the pattern is occurring, or we have a good support count. So market basket analysis is a very good example of frequent item set mining. Here, the transactions are analyzed to find out any associations between the items which are bought together. So, if somebody buys item A, will he also likely buy item D or item B and so on. So, in this example, we have just 4 transactions and the items which are bought fall in the A, B, C, D, only 4 types. Okay, what is support of X? It is the probability that X is occurring in the transactions. So we want to find frequent patterns, that is the items purchased together with minimum support as 50%. Okay. So here we will be having patterns of length 1, 2, 3 and 4 because the cardinality of the total set is 4. So you can have patterns of length 1, 2, 3 or 4. So we simply move ahead with the example in an intuitive manner and then later on discuss the algorithmic part of it. So in the step 1, we find frequent patterns of length 1, individual items. So the items are A alone, B, C and D, and we find the frequency counts. So we see here that A has occurred twice, B has occurred in 3 transactions, T01, T02, T04, and similarly we get the counts for 2 and 3. So since we said minimum support is 50%, the minimum frequency count becomes 2. So all the patterns here, the individuals, item sets A, B, C and D are having the frequency counts more than or equal to 2. So all the patterns of length 1 are frequent patterns. Now we go to frequent patterns of length 2 because we saw that patterns of length 1 are all frequent. So we found the patterns of length 2, that is all combinations of these 4 items AB, AC, AD, BC, BT and CD. There are 6 such pairs and we take the frequency count as before. So AB occurs only in the transaction T01. So we get the frequency count of 1. Similarly, ACBC is only in T03. Again, we get a count of 1. AD occurs in T01 and T03. So the count is 2 and so on for the all the pairs we do. So what do we see? AB is not frequent. Similarly, AC, AD is frequent and for all the rest. So 4 pairs are not frequent because the support count is less than 2, while 2 of them are. So only patterns AD and BD are frequent patterns. So in our example of 4 transactions, we have found that all patterns of length 1 are frequent and in length 2 or size 2, only 2 frequent patterns. Okay. So we look at our example and here we have seen that the frequent patterns of length 1 and 2 are found in this manner. So we proceed further. We find patterns of length 3 whose subsets are frequent patterns. Now, why are we doing this? There's an intuition behind it. In fact, a very good property behind it. However, we'll look into it later. But what we see here that patterns of length 3 whose subsets are frequent patterns. See, there are only 2 patterns of length 3, ABD and ACD. When we look at ABD, its 2 subsets AD and BD are frequent, but the subset AB is not. So we cannot consider that. And ACD, of course, cannot also be considered. So we see that we cannot find patterns of length 3 whose subsets are frequent patterns. So since no pattern of length 3 is found, we need not explore patterns of length 4. So in our example, all the frequent patterns which could be found were of length 1 and length 2. And we make this statement: for a pattern to be frequent, all its subsets should be frequent. And this property, also known as the downward closure property of frequent patterns, puts a bound on the generation of frequent item sets. Very true. We did not generate those item sets whose subset were not frequent. We quickly present another example to reinforce what we have just gone through. So here we have 6 transactions. So minimum support of 50% requires absolute support of 3. In the item set length 1, we see that E is not frequent. Then we go to length 2, and here again this CD, whose item count is 2, is not frequent. We generate patterns of length 3 from those subsets where uh, we had the frequent patterns coming out. So ABC, AB is frequent, AC is frequent, but the frequency count of ABC is 2. Similarly, ABD, AB, AD and BD are all frequent. So we could also take this into consideration of length 3, but the frequency count for this also came out to be 2. So both of these are also not frequent. And since no pattern of length 3 is frequent, we need not explore patterns of length 4 or 5. So this property forms the basis for pruning out the non-frequent patterns. In this video, we have presented the working of, through an example, the method of finding the frequent item sets, proceeding intuitively from length 1 patterns to length 2 and length 3 and so on, showing also that if we do not find frequent patterns of a certain length, we need not generate the superset of such patterns. We'll look into it in more detail in the next videos. So thanks for watching. Thank you.